You guys know my position on the housing market. It is too expensive, it's unaffordable, it's in a bubble. The data is all there. From the crazy increases in price over the last year to the reluctance of the banks to be lending out money, the market has boomed for too long, and there's only one way for it to go from here. Imagine my surprise then, when the Supreme Court throws out the federal moratorium on evictions, and it seems as though no one cares. Try and find a video here on YouTube from an actual news site on this, and you will be amazed at how few there are. A year ago, when the virus was starting to spread and lockdowns were beginning, every media organization in the world was clamoring for help for homeowners and renters, crying out that if people were forced to stop working, they will lose their homes and they will lose their apartments. And yet today, when we're in that exact same position, the media is silent. They aren't putting forward their arguments for why the moratorium should remain, and they aren't making predictions about the housing market if it does go this way. But you know me, I'm not the media. I'm not going to stay silent on an issue as imperative as housing just to keep market sentiment high. The reality is that the housing market is in a really tough spot right now. From the Fed's inevitable tapering of buying mortgage-backed securities to the imminent rise in interest rates, there is a lot going on and it doesn't look good. But today, I'm going to give you the data. I'm going to tell you what I truly believe is going to happen, and I'm going to do it with as little bias as possible. But really quickly, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. We're putting out loads of videos just like this constantly that you don't want to miss out on. So what was the mortgage and eviction forbearance? Well, it's pretty simple. When the lockdown started, millions of people lost their jobs. Millions more had to take pay cuts, and for people who were already unemployed, it suddenly became a lot harder to find a job. Now, the government knew that loads of people would be unable to pay their mortgages or their rent, and as it was their fault, they shut down the economy after all, they saw fit to put into law temporary measures that would mean people can't be evicted from their homes for not paying rent, and they can't have their homes repossessed if they don't pay their mortgages. Now, the way this was actually done obviously varied by country and by state, but in the US as a whole, as long as you had a government-backed loan like an FHA or a VA loan, then you could put the mortgage on hold and you just didn't have to make repayments. And it was pretty much the same for renters. The CDC announced a moratorium on evictions, meaning that people who weren't paying their rent were able to stay in their homes. Now, while most people agree that some kind of measures like this were necessary due to the lockdowns, lots of people think this has been done in the wrong way. Those who own rental properties, investors, have basically had the burden forced onto them through no fault of their own, and they haven't seen as nearly as much support as those actually living in the homes. Obviously, some people took advantage of the systems put in place to help people. I experienced that myself. I had a tenant just flat out refuse to pay his rent for no reason. He said that he didn't have to, the law had changed, and I was without recourse. Now, luckily, I just so happened to be selling the house, so in the end, I only ended up losing a few £1,000s, but I obviously wasn't the only person to experience that sort of thing. Now, that being said, while the system was open to abuse, most people using it were legitimate and were just down on their luck. But it does look like this is all about to end. Just last week, the Supreme Court reversed the CDC's most recent eviction moratorium, meaning that people can now be evicted again, and the same will probably happen to the foreclosure moratorium as well. So what will happen now that the market is getting back to normal? Well, that's what I'm going to explain next, but first, a really quick message from this video's sponsor. If you're like me, you value investing and putting your money to work for you, then you need to hear about Investors Observer. Basically, Investors Observer make analyzing stocks easier by turning overcomplicated and difficult to read data into infographics that save you time and allow you to concentrate on the stocks that have real potential. Each stock is awarded 7 scores that are useful for all types of traders, whether you use technical or fundamental analysis or whether you're a growth or a value investor. Their mission is to give traders confidence by providing them with all the data they need in a way they can understand, and they are completely unbiased in the way that they do this. There are a bunch of different useful tools to help you analyze over 10,000 different companies, including a stock screener which allows you to explore new ideas based on your own personal criteria, a portfolio tracker, a stock's newsfeed, a compare tool and watch list, and there's even an app that you can download from the iOS App Store. If you're interested in investing or trading and you value your time, then I seriously suggest you check Investors Observer out. There's a link down below in the description that will show you a range of different options, including one that's absolutely free. But that link will also give you 60% off your subscriptions for life, so make sure to check it out. But now, back to the video. So what will happen when these moratoriums end? Well, very simply, people who haven't been paying their rent will be evicted from their homes. Those investors or landlords who haven't received any rent in months, or in some cases over a year, are going to be desperate to get new paying tenants into their properties. They will list them and increase the supply of housing on the open market. Now, anyone who knows basic economics knows that price action is just basic supply and demand. If supply increases, then price decreases. But at the same time as this is happening, lots of landlords are going to be so desperate to just get a paying tenant in, as many of them will be behind on mortgages and bills themselves. They are going to be willing to accept less rent than they otherwise might, forcing rents down even lower. The same sort of thing will happen at exactly the same time in the housing market when the foreclosure moratorium ends. People who haven't been making their payments will find the bank knocking on their doors, kicking them out and putting their houses on the market. This will flood the supply and force prices down. And what's more, the banks will be desperate to get their money out of the property, so they'll be willing to sell at a hefty discount. What's even worse, many banks will just sell everything at auction for huge discounts. This is exactly what happened in 2008, and it's starting to look like there's nothing stopping it from happening again. In terms of the numbers and the statistics, it doesn't look good either. Right now, there are 4.6 million households who think they will be evicted upon or foreclosed upon in the next 2 months. This graph here shows that data from the US Census Pulse survey, and you can very clearly see that while there are less people expecting to be evicted compared to the worst part of the pandemic, there are still an awful lot of people in that position, 4.6 million. Now, for some context, in a normal year, there will be around 2 million people evicted or foreclosed upon, and there will be around 6 million homes sold. As of right now, there are 1.7 million households that have not been paying their mortgages, and they are still protected under the forbearance program. When that program ends, the market will be flooded with supply. It will be a great time to be a buyer and an awful time to be a seller. And as the housing market is affected, every other part of the economy will be affected as well, just like it was in 2008. Real estate agents, mortgage brokers and bankers will be the first to lose their jobs, but this will then ripple right across the economy as a whole, impacting everyone. The truth is that there just isn't really any way around this. If the government decided today to extend the foreclosure and eviction moratoriums again, it wouldn't solve the problem. It would just be kicking the can further down the road, inflating the housing market bubble even further, and setting us up for a bigger crash in the future. There is no easy way out here, and that's because evictions and foreclosures are not the only problems for the housing market. The Fed is still buying billions of dollars of mortgage-backed securities every day, and at some point they will have to taper. Inflation is running rampant in the economy, and as long as the government keeps this quantitative easing up, it's not going to stop. And then on top of all that, interest rates are sitting at record lows, and there is nowhere to go for them but up, especially when inflation rates are as high as they are. Any one of these problems could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it's impossible for the authorities to address all these concerns at the same time. The truth is, if you're looking at buying a home in the next year or so, you're probably going to be in luck. If you've recently bought a home, then you're probably in for some pain. But as long as you live within your means, you don't overextend yourself, you don't waste your money, and you are able and happy to stay in your home long term, you will probably be alright. If you're new to this channel and you enjoyed the video, then make sure to subscribe. If you want to help spread the word, then consider liking the video and leaving a comment, and YouTube will do its part by pushing this video out to more people. I really do appreciate all the support you give the channel, even if it's just leaving a like. Also, make sure to check out this video's sponsor, Investors Observer. If you want to help out further, there is a link down below in the description to BlockFi where you can get up to $250 in free Bitcoin, and you can earn interest on whatever crypto you hold, whether it's Bitcoin, Ether, or even stable coins. You can earn as much as 14% interest a year. There's also a link to my favorite brokerage called eToro, where you can trade stocks and shares, crypto, commodities, foreign currencies, and more, all for 0% commission. So make sure to check that out as well. Thanks for watching. Until next time.